6 people slaughtered in a lonely farmhouse, and the killer was never caught. What happened on a remote Bavarian farm in 1922 remains one of the most chilling and mysterious cases in history. This is the story of the Hinterkaifeck Murders.
Hinterkaifeck was a small farmstead nestled deep in the Bavarian countryside, about 70 kilometers north of Munich. It belonged to Andreas Gruber, a 63-year-old farmer known for his strict, often harsh demeanor. Living with him were his wife, Cecilia, their widowed daughter, Victoria, and Victoria's 2 children, 7-year-old Cecilia and 2-year-old Joseph. A maid named Maria had just joined the household, replacing the previous servant who had quit suddenly, claiming the farm was haunted.
In the days before the murders, the family reported unsettling events. Andreas discovered strange footprints in the snow, leading from the edge of the forest straight to the farmhouse, but none leading away. They heard footsteps in the attic, though no intruder was ever found. Their keys went missing. The maid complained of ghostly voices at night and left, terrified. Andreas confided these details to neighbors, but dismissed them as nonsense, insisting nothing could harm him on his own land. He was wrong. On the evening of March 31, 1922, darkness fell over Hinterkaifeck. Neighbors were called later that the family did not appear in town the next day. No smoke rose from the chimney. No one saw Andreas or Victoria tending to the fields. Days passed in silence. Concern grew. Something was terribly wrong.
On April 4th, concerned neighbors finally approached the farm. They found the place unnervingly silent. The livestock were restless, unfed, yet alive. The doors were locked from the inside. When they forced their way into the barn, they made a horrifying discovery. Piled beneath straw, the bodies of Andreas, his wife Cecilia, their daughter Victoria, and little Cecilia. Bludgeoned to death, their skulls shattered by a pickaxe-like weapon. Inside the farmhouse, they found 2 more bodies, baby Joseph in his crib and the maid Maria, murdered on her very first night at Hinterkaifeck.
The brutality was shocking. Each victim's skull was crushed with terrifying force. The young girl, Cecilia, showed signs of having pulled out her own hair in sheer terror before death. And yet, there were signs the killer remained on the farm for days afterward. The livestock had been fed, meals had been eaten. Even the chimney showed smoke long after the family was dead. Whoever had done this had not simply killed, they had lived among the corpses. When police from Munich arrived at the farmstead, they were confronted with one of the most disturbing crime scenes in German history. The barn where the family had been slaughtered was silent except for the restless moaning of the cattle. Investigators noted how strangely neat the farm appeared. No signs of ransacking, no valuables stolen. The killer's purpose was not theft, it was something far more sinister.
The murders had been carried out with brutal precision. A mattock, an agricultural tool similar to a pickaxe, was later found hidden in the attic. The blows to the victims' heads were so forceful that bone fragments embedded in the walls. Yet, despite such savagery, the killer covered the bodies with straw, sheets, and even a child's dress, as if concealing their crime or perhaps showing a twisted sense of remorse.
But perhaps the most unsettling discovery was this. After the murders, someone had stayed. The family's cattle were fed. The dog was let loose, then tied again. Bread and meat from the kitchen were eaten. Neighbors swore they saw smoke rising from the chimney days after the family's deaths. Whoever the killer was, they lived in the house, among the corpses, for at least 3 days.
Investigators recalled Andreas Gruber's chilling words before the murders. about missing keys and footsteps in the attic. Could the killer have been hiding inside the house even before the slaughter? The thought was horrifying. Imagine an unseen presence lurking above, waiting for the right night to strike.
Word spread quickly through the small Bavarian community. Neighbors were horrified not only by the murders, but by the thought that the killer might still be among them. For years, Andreas Gruber had been disliked. His stern nature, his rumored incestuous relationship with his daughter, Victoria, and bitter feuds with nearby villagers. Many wondered, was this massacre an act of revenge?
Suspicion soon turned to Lorenz Schlittenbauer, a neighbor who had once been romantically involved with Victoria. He was rumored to be the father of baby Josef and had been in bitter dispute with the Gruber family over money and land. Some claimed he had an unusual calmness when discovering the bodies. Others whispered that he alone seemed to know how to unlock the farmhouse doors without forcing them. Was he the killer, or just a grieving man wrongly accused?
As days passed, fear consumed the village. Every creak of wood, every shadow in the night seemed like a lurking killer. Parents locked their children indoors. Neighbors avoided each other. The Gruber farm, once a symbol of hard work, had become a monument to terror. And worse, the killer had vanished without a trace.
The police interviewed over 100 suspects, soldiers, neighbors, criminals, even wandering vagrants. Yet no clear evidence tied anyone to the crime. The brutality of the killing suggested rage, but the meticulous feeding of livestock and lingering presence on the farm suggested patience and familiarity. The investigation quickly grew cold, leaving only rumors to fill the silence.
One of the strongest suspects remained Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the neighbor and former lover of Victoria. His connection to the family was complicated. Some believed he fathered little Joseph. Others said he wanted to marry Victoria, but Andreas had forbidden it. His behavior at the discovery of the bodies was unsettling, entering the farmhouse alone, unlocking doors as if he knew the house better than he should. Was he searching for clues or hiding evidence?
The Gruber household was not without its dark secrets. For years, villagers whispered that Andreas and his daughter Victoria had an incestuous relationship. Court documents confirmed they had both been jailed once for it. If true, it cast a grim shadow over the family and raised the possibility that the murders were not random, but the result of shame, anger, or jealousy boiling over into violence.
Other suspects included former farmhands. The Grubers were known to treat their workers harshly, and some left with deep resentment. One drifter had even threatened revenge. Could a disgruntled worker have returned, hiding in the attic, waiting for the perfect night? The missing keys and unexplained footsteps in the roof only deepened this chilling theory. The precision of the murders led some investigators to suspect there may have been more than one killer. How could a lone attacker lure 4 family members into the barn one by one without raising alarm? Some theorized that one person was already inside the house while another waited outside. If true, the massacre at Hinterkaifeck may have been a coordinated attack. As the investigation faltered, villagers began to whisper of darker forces. The missing keys, the footsteps in the attic, the unexplained voices heard by the previous maid all fed into a belief that the Gruber farm was cursed. Some even suggested the family had been stalked by something not human, a presence that had lived in the shadows of Hinterkaifeck long before the killings.
Whatever the truth, Hinterkaifeck seemed marked for tragedy. The family was isolated, disliked, bound by rumors and secrets. In that silence, on that lonely patch of farmland, someone, or something, struck with merciless brutality. 6 lives extinguished, and a community left forever haunted by what happened in the snow.
Despite decades of investigation, the Hinterkaifeck murders were never solved. Over 100 suspects were questioned. Every lead, every rumor, every whisper was pursued, but no confession was ever made and no evidence was ever conclusive. To this day, the case remains one of the most disturbing unsolved crimes in German history. Years later, modern investigators tried once again to unravel the truth. Forensic experts examined skulls, autopsy reports, and police records. They believed they identified the killer. But out of respect for surviving family members, the name was never made public. Even in the 21st century, Hinterkaifeck refused to give up all of its secrets. Over the decades, the farm itself fell into ruin. In 1923, the buildings were demolished and the land was left empty. The locals still avoided the site. Many claimed to hear screams in the night or the cries of a child carried on the wind. To this day, flowers are sometimes left on the ground where the farmhouse once stood, as if to appease restless spirits.
Some believe the Grubers were not killed by human hands at all. They point to the mysterious footsteps, the missing keys, the attic noises, the way the cattle were cared for after the murders. Was the family being stalked by a spirit, an ancient curse tied to the land? Or did madness descend upon Hinterkaifeck, driving someone within the household to commit the unimaginable?
The Hinterkaifeck murders are a wound that never healed. 6 lives ended violently, a community forever scarred, and a mystery that endures a century later. Was it revenge, insanity, or something unearthly? No one can say. All that remains is silence and the chilling knowledge that a murderer once walked into the snow and vanished forever. Perhaps the most terrifying part of this story is not the brutality of the murders, but the fact that the killer was never found. Somewhere, out there, in the silence of Bavaria, a secret was buried that may never be uncovered. And that secret belongs to Hinterkaifeck.